It's now already 6 years that Cassie Jaye made the documentary The Red Pill. In this documentary, she discovers the unwillingness of many feminists to talk about men's issues. In the following segment, she explains the turning point why she stopped labeling herself a feminist.
You know, I think part of what gave me that breaking point was when I started to explain to my feminist friends men's issues that I really did think they had the statistics to back them in the studies and to support what the MRAs are saying. And so then I would try to relay that message to my feminist friends, and then I saw their unwillingness to listen and just be dismissive towards these issues. And I realized I was doing that too, but I did have a breaking point where I started to think, no, we should, for instance, let's use an example with suicide. 78% of all suicides around the world are men. And the common reaction you'll get from feminists is saying that more women attempt suicide. And what I learned from the men's rights movement is they aren't trying to dismiss women's issues, or they're not saying that no woman is ever raped or no woman is ever abused by her spouse, but they're trying to bring up issues that men face. But when you do that, instantly feminists, or even people who don't wear feminism on their sleeve, but just are the kind of mainstream liberal, seemingly open-minded person.
Seemingly open-minded, yeah. That seems to be a theme around a lot of the stuff I talk about,
Seemingly. And so they'll have these quick responses that are, in essence, diminishing what the men's issue is, like saying, well, more women attempt, but still 78% of all suicides are men. And then domestic violence, 1 in 3 women are, within their lifetime, will be a victim of physical abuse by an intimate partner, and 1 in 4 men. And that's from the CDC, and it's very similar. We always hear about the 1 in 3 women when talking about domestic violence, but we rarely hear about men. So, so when an MRA tries to bring up 1 in 4 men, immediately feminists are saying, yeah, but more women. Okay, but we talk about that, and why are we so unwilling to address men's issues?
It's quite heartbreaking that feminism makes women feel to be the victim of society in situations where they're not. One issue is that stay-at-home moms feel frequently worthless if they don't have a career. Also, and this puts an additional pressure on them.
And it does turn into the tit-for-tat oppression Olympics, who has it worse. And that's what I found really fascinating about making the Red Pill is because MRAs aren't dismissing women's issues, and all the MRAs I spoke to said that they are for women's rights. That's a big misconception that the mainstream media tries to paint about the men's rights movement, that they're trying to turn back the clock on women's rights, want them back in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant, and that's not the case at all. And I would actually say they're even going further into the gender equality discussion by adding men to the discussion. And but what was so fascinating about the feminist ideology, and that was a word that I didn't connect with feminism many months into filming it, and when it finally clicked in my head that feminism is an ideology. And I would love for our culture to get to a point where we can distinguish between feminism and being for women's rights, because they are two different things. Feminism is a movement with a belief system, and not all people who say they are feminists, or not all people who are non-feminists, are against women's rights. You can be for women's rights without being a feminist.
Right. So do you think that the ideology of feminism, or the movement of feminism, kind of lost its way over the years? Do you think it's possible? I've had a few guests on here that have said, as things have gotten better for women, and as there is equality for women, you always have to find a new oppression for yourself, according to the suppression Olympic scale. So you have to suddenly be more offended by words if actions aren't happening to you, and things like that. So do you think the movement kind of just lost its way?
I mean, I'll try to think back to my previous 10 years of being a feminist and how I saw it evolve. And I don't think, when I became a feminist around 2005, it wasn't as big as it is now. And I think social media has a large part to do with that. And it's almost gotten to the point where, this is my personal opinion, I don't think everyone would agree with this, but it almost becomes where people want to bully you into labeling yourself a feminist. And I've heard some feminist women tell men, say, well, are you for gender equality? Well, yes, I am. Well, then you're a feminist. And it's almost like a very, if that's the only test you have to take that,
Right.
Are you for gender equality? Yes. And here's your score. You're a feminist.
Right.
It's so much deeper than that. And it is the politics of the movement. It's the tactics. It's the ideology that all women are oppressed by all men, that we live in a patriarchy. And that's discounting all the other factors, including gender roles, that a large part of them are biologically related.
Cassie argues that she is for women's rights, but she does not want to be called a feminist. This raises the question about what it means to be a feminist.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, how you bear children is the biggest difference. And because women do carry the child and also breastfeed, that does change how relationships, the dynamics of the home and how you operate the home and raise the kids up, that does change who's decided to be the breadwinner, and if someone's going to stay home, who is going to be that person. And feminism has tried to rewrite the script that the reason men go to work and women stay home is because we have this idea of the gender wage gap, so therefore why should she be the breadwinner if she's going to make 77 cents to a man's dollar? That doesn't make sense. So it's keeping her in the home because of this gender discrimination. But as I'm sure you know, the gender wage gap is not
I've
based.
had Christina Hoff Summers on.
Right.
We've dived into it, yeah.
Right.
So how would you actually define feminism then? I probably should have asked you this 10 minutes ago, but what do you think what would your definition of 2016, what does feminism mean?
Oh gosh, that's a
I'm really
tough one.
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, how would I define feminism now with where my head is after making the red pill? I do believe it is an ideology. I actually came out of a religion when I was in my teen years, and spoiler alert, with the red pill, I also end up not being a feminist after making the red pill, and they were very similar experiences for me. I call it the shedding process, where it happens over a long period of years for me, but it's this resistance to wanting to hear the facts and apply that to your belief system that's been so comfortable for so long and that you've kind of blindly believed in and led you throughout your life. And when you start questioning that, it's a very scary experience. So, but as far as how I define feminism now, I do think of it as a quasi-religion because the feminists that I've been seeing are unwilling to have an intellectual discussion just based on the statistics and facts that don't fit within their belief system. And so if you believe that all women are oppressed by all men, then how could it be that women have more reproductive rights and more reproductive choices when having children, and yet men could be a victim of paternity fraud? And paternity fraud is when you're raising a child that you later find out is not yours, and there's no repercussion for a woman if she'd been lying to this man for 18 years saying it's his own kid, and turns out it's not, and the courts don't support him being any kind of resolution to that. I mean, there's so many different issues that do attack men.
Yeah.
On their gender.
And some of those things actually are systemic. Like when people talk about systemic racism, there are things that are systemic. I have a friend right now that's going through a divorce with a child custody battle, and he's been the primary breadwinner for the entire time, and at times his wife didn't work and didn't have a lot of money, and he provided for everybody, but she's getting much more leniency related to the child right now. That's actually systemic, meaning that it's part of the system, the legal system, that she's getting benefits that he doesn't as the man.
Yes. Yeah, and something when I was making the red pill that was very interesting is that feminists will also acknowledge custody issues for men, but they will still say that it's discrimination against women. So the reason that women get custody of the children about 80% of the time in all custody cases is because it's discrimination against women, that women are expected to be the child caretaker and be the stay-at-home
mom. So even if they
mom.
get the child, which in most cases is what they want, that's still discrimination.
Yes.
Because that's the role that the woman is supposed to play or something.